November 29th, 1981. Catalina Island, California. 1:30 a.m. A Hollywood icon slips beneath the dark waters of the Pacific Ocean. She's wearing a nightgown and a down jacket. She's terrified of water. She can't swim. And she's alone. By morning, Natalie Wood is dead. The official story: accidental drowning, too much wine, a tragic accident. Beat, water sounds fade. But 43 years later, the boat captain who was there that night finally broke his silence. And what he revealed changed everything we thought we knew about that night. This is the story of Hollywood's most beautiful mystery, and the three men who know what really happened. Before we dive into this story, and I need to warn you, what you're about to hear is deeply disturbing. I want you to do something for me. If you remember Natalie Wood, if you grew up watching West Side Story or Rebel Without a Cause, hit that subscribe button right now. Because this channel is dedicated to telling the real stories behind the legends. The ones that make you uncomfortable. The ones that ask difficult questions. And this story, it's full of questions that still don't have answers. Let's go back to the beginning. Natalie Wood was born Natalia Nikolaevna Zakharenko in San Francisco on July 20th, 1938. Her parents were Russian immigrants who had escaped the revolution. Her mother, Maria, was a former ballerina with dreams of Hollywood stardom that she would never achieve herself. So she decided her daughter would achieve them instead. At 4 years old, Natalie was already working. At 8, she starred opposite Orson Welles in Tomorrow is Forever. At 9, she became a household name in Miracle on 34th Street. But childhood fame came with a price. When Natalie was 7, she was filming a scene that required her to fall from a bridge into a river. The director, Irving Pichel, wanted authentic fear on her face. So he pulled her aside and whispered something that would haunt her for the rest of her life. The water is full of creatures that want to pull you down. If you go under, they'll never let you go. The scene was terrifying. Natalie's fear was real. And for the rest of her life, she would have nightmares about dark water and things beneath the surface pulling her down. She told friends and family repeatedly, "I will die in dark water. I know it. I can feel it." 40 years later, her premonition would come true. By 1981, Natalie Wood had survived 2 decades of Hollywood pressure, 2 marriages to actor Robert Wagner, and countless struggles with anxiety and depression. She was 43 years old, still beautiful, still working, but haunted by demons only she could see. That Thanksgiving weekend, she was on a yacht called the Splendor with 3 men. Robert Wagner, her husband, the golden boy of Hollywood, handsome, charming, and according to those who knew him, deeply insecure about his wife's talent overshadowing his own. Christopher Walken, her co-star in the film Brainstorm, method actor, intense, magnetic, and according to tabloid rumors, perhaps too close to Natalie for Wagner's comfort. Dennis Davin, the boat captain, a hired employee who witnessed everything, a man who would stay silent for 30 years out of fear, or loyalty, or both. The weekend started normally enough. The 4 of them, Natalie, Wagner, Walken, and Davin, sailed to Catalina Island to relax between filming days. They had dinner at Doug's Harbor Reef restaurant on shore. They drank wine. They laughed. They seemed like any group of friends on vacation. But something happened that night on the boat. Something that would end with Natalie Wood dead in the water. The question that has haunted investigators for over 40 years is simple. Was it really an accident? Now, before I tell you what happened next, I need to know, what do you remember about Natalie Wood's death? Did you believe the original story, That she accidentally slipped and drowned? Or did you always suspect something darker? Drop a comment below and tell me what you thought when you first heard the news in 1981. Because what the authorities told us then is very different from what we know now. And if this story is already making you uneasy, hit that like button. It helps this video reach more people who deserve to know the truth. Alright, let's talk about what happened on that boat. According to Dennis Daven's original statement, the one he gave to police in 1981, this is what happened. They returned to the yacht around 10 p.m. after dinner. Natalie went to bed. The three men stayed up drinking. At some point around midnight, Wagner noticed Natalie wasn't in their cabin. He checked the deck. The dinghy was missing. He assumed she had taken it to shore. Simple. Tragic. Accidental. But in 2011, 30 years later, Dennis Daven told a very different story on national television. They were arguing, Daven said, his voice shaking. Wagner and Natalie. About Walken. About how close they'd become during filming. Wagner was drunk. He was angry. He smashed a wine bottle on the table and screamed at her. According to Daven, the argument escalated. Natalie, trying to escape the tension, went out onto the deck. She may have been trying to secure the dinghy that was banging against the yacht in the waves. Or she may have been trying to leave entirely. What happened next? No one knows for certain. What we do know, around 1:30 a.m., Natalie Wood was found floating face down in the water, wearing her nightgown and a down jacket. She had bruises on her arms and legs, scratches on her face, a scrape on her forehead. The dinghy was found nearby, its engine off. The coroner ruled it accidental drowning. The case was closed. Robert Wagner went on national television and mourned his beautiful wife. Christopher Walken refused to discuss that night. And Dennis Daven stayed quiet. Until he didn't. In 2011, Dennis Daven published a book called Goodbye Natalie, Goodbye Splendor. In it, he revealed details that contradicted everything he'd told police 30 years earlier. The argument wasn't mild. It was explosive. Wagner wasn't just upset. He was enraged. And most damning of all, when Natalie went missing, Wagner delayed calling for help. "We heard her," Daven said in interviews. "We heard her calling for help. Wagner told me, leave her. Let her sit out there." He was angry. He wanted to teach her a lesson. According to Daven, they waited nearly an hour before Wagner finally called the Coast Guard. An hour during which Natalie Wood, who couldn't swim, who was terrified of water, was struggling in the dark, cold Pacific Ocean. Wagner's response to these allegations? Silence. His publicist released a brief statement calling Daven's claims lies motivated by money. Christopher Walken also remained silent, saying only, "I don't know what happened. I wasn't there when she went into the water." But the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department took Daven seriously enough to reopen the case in 2011. They reclassified Natalie's death from accidental drowning to drowning and other undetermined factors. In 2018, they named Robert Wagner a person of interest, not a suspect, not officially, but a person of interest who has refused to speak to investigators. The bruises on Natalie's body? Never fully explained. The scratches on her face? Inconsistent with simply falling from a boat. The down jacket she was wearing? So heavy when wet that it would have dragged her under like an anchor. And the timeline? The hour of delay before calling for help? Those questions remain unanswered. Here's what keeps me up at night about this story. Even if Robert Wagner didn't push her, even if he didn't physically harm her? If he heard her calling for help and chose not to respond immediately, what does that make him? I'm genuinely asking. If you delay calling for help during a moment of anger and someone dies, are you responsible? Leave your answer in the comments, because this is the gray area where the law ends and morality begins. And if you want to hear how this story ends, because there is more, you need to stay with me for just 2 more minutes. Natalie Wood left behind 2 daughters, Natasha Gregson Wagner and Courtney Wagner. For decades, they defended their stepfather Robert Wagner. They believed the official story. They mourned their mother and tried to move on. But when Dennis Davin came forward in 2011, everything changed. Natasha, Natalie's oldest daughter, has said publicly, "I don't believe it was a simple accident anymore. I believe there was more to that night than we were told." Robert Wagner is 94 years old now. He lives in Los Angeles, protected by publicists and lawyers. He has never given a full account of what happened that night. He has refused to speak to investigators. When pressed, he simply says, "It was a tragic accident. I loved her. I miss her every day." But love and guilt are not mutually exclusive. A man can love his wife and still be responsible for her death. The case remains open, technically. But without Wagner's testimony, without new evidence, it will likely never be solved. Natalie Wood's body rests in Westwood Village Memorial Park Cemetery in Los Angeles. Her gravestone reads, "Beloved daughter, sister, wife, mother, and friend. More than love." But the truth about her final hours? That remains beneath the surface, like dark water hiding secrets. November 29, 1981. A Hollywood icon dies in dark water. The one thing she feared most her entire life. Was it an accident? A tragic combination of alcohol and misfortune? Or was it something darker? A moment of anger that spiraled into catastrophe? A delay in calling for help that became a death sentence? We may never know the full truth, but we owe it to Natalie Wood to keep asking the questions. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think Robert Wagner is guilty? Of murder? Of negligence? Or is he simply a grieving husband who made a terrible mistake? Tell me in the comments. And please, be respectful. This is a real tragedy involving real people. If you want more stories like this, mysteries that were never solved, scandals that were buried, and truths that Hollywood doesn't want you to know, then subscribe to this channel right now. Next week, I'm telling you about Frank Sinatra's secret dealings with the mob, the president, and the betrayal that destroyed him. You don't want to miss it. Subscribe, hit the bell, and I'll see you in the next story. This is the story they never wanted you to know. The mystery that remains unsolved. And now you know why.